I'm joined in Shanghai by Kuat Akizhanov, Deputy Director of the Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation Institute. In London, Professor Helena Kalizhanova, Director of the Center for Euro-Asian Studies with the University of Reading. In Moscow, Yuri Tavrovsky, a sinologist and academician with the Russian Academy of Natural Studies. And also in Beijing, Rong Ying, Vice President of the China Institute of International Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. I want to start by asking Kuat your thoughts on the upcoming Council of Heads of Government of Member States for Shanghai Cooperation Organization. With the summit wrapped up early, what can be the action plan that's likely to be discussed this time?
Well, I believe Shanghai Cooperation Organization is now kind of a turning point. All these meetings now, we are getting used to them. That is a real counterbalance to what's going on in other parts of the world. And for example, for China's top concern is to ensure that Shanghai Cooperation Organization remains a cornerstone for regional stability amid global fragmentation. And the same policies and interests applies to all member countries. Beijing for sure will push for tight economic coordination and infrastructure integration under the Belt and Road Initiative, especially with Eurasian economies that feel sidelined by the Western financial order. So for Central Asia, this includes diversifying trade routes via China's westward push, for example, the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway, and reducing dependency on Western-dominated financial institutions such as IMF and World Bank. The optimal outcome would be a formal endorsement of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's 10-year development strategy, a kind of development strategy that with the emphasis on industrial cooperation, digital infrastructure, climate change resilience, and to have a more assertive economic governance framework rooted in multipolarity.
I see. Yuri, your thoughts?
SCO has become a very important international, not regional, but international organization. And it has several institutions, but not enough institutions.
I see.
So they added several major amendments, like the decision to start SCO Bank was taken. And another was to start organizing a complex center for dealing with security problems and also anti-narcotics center. So I think it's only started the process of adding more institutions. And it's very important at the background of Chairman Xi Jinping's global governance. It is very timely, and I think SCO will become one of the important parts of this, of realizing this idea.
Yeah. Elena, we noticed that the SCO Council meeting is right after the G7 wrap-up 8th Heads of State meeting, which is quite interesting, not only by comparison, but also by the topics on the agenda. Your thoughts?
What I would like to mention upfront that we see the new dynamic by 2023-2025 about SCO statements, which took distinctly on the global tone, and it's condemning unilateral sanctions and advocating a more just a representative multipolar system in the world affairs. And I think that would be an interesting point that in 2025 Taiwan Declaration, it's explicitly criticized the Western sanctions and emphasize principle of sovereignty and non-interference. What would be the core here is certainly the challenges which not only G7 or SCO are facing, but generally for the whole world. And for example, when we talk about security or economics, we usually talk about the institutional dimension, about the general, traditional sense of the security. But I would say that addressing the non-traditional security, like climate change, water scarcity, public health, and cybersecurity, would be one of the SCO opportunity in the years ahead. And that would make the organization distinct, because somehow I have an impression that many international organizations are going around the circles, and every summit is declaring something which should be done, but not much from the wishful thinking is going ahead. And then next year coming, and next year we talking again about the same issues. But to break that vicious circle, I would say that for SCO, the global standing after 25 years, and the organization is already 25 years here, should become the global player, but it must prove its efficient way, and it strengthened ties, providing an inclusive platform that bridges regions from East, South, Central Asia to the Middle East.
Earlier, we talked about the Global Governance Initiative by Yuri. In fact, one of the most important principles of this GGI is actions. For example, about the establishment of SCO Bank. For example, about the trade rules, how these countries, developing and emerging economies, can work together. And also, for example, how to work on the connectivity to make sure it really works. How much, Ying, do you think these specific things, as a result of the achievements of the SCO summit earlier in Tianjin this year, how will they be implemented by this Council of the Heads of Government?
At the SCO summit in Tianjin, the leaders came up with their vision, their directions for what SCO is up to in the next 10 years' time. And most importantly, of course, the role of SCO on the field of global governance. That's exactly the reason why Chinese initiative, the global governance initiative, comes into play. And you look at the action plans, you look at the Chinese side in particular, came up with the proposed 6 sort of centers, and also on the question of security, as our Russian colleagues mentioned. So in all, I think, and last but not least, the institutional reforms, which are also very much important in terms of strengthening or incorporating the different layers or type of groups. Now we have 10 full groups, full members, and there are dialogue partners and also observers. Now they have decided to, put them in one group, putting together that is altogether 27.
Of course, the SCO Bank that has been proposed during the Tianjin summit just earlier this year have already been talking about some very specifics. For example, how the initiative will be put into action, how much China will contribute, both in cash and also in loans. How much do you think the next steps of establishing the SCO Bank will be discussed, and how will this compare to the already established, BRICS Bank, Development Bank, that has already headquartered in Shanghai?
I'm quite optimistic because I think in this regard, in other words, the development banks like SCOs and others, now we have good experience. First and foremost, the AIIB, which has proved very successful so far. And also the BRICS development banks are very much successful in a way that in addressing or learning which I think SCO Bank, Development Bank, can draw lessons or learn lessons, experience from that. So SCO Development Bank is going to be bigger, which means maybe need more, better sort of cooperation, or by giving the full play of the spirit of Shanghai Spirit. But I think definitely, I think it will make, together with previous 2 development banks, it will play a very important role in helping the members, dialogue partners, and so forth, and the global south as a whole.
If I may chip in here, I fully agree with Professor Yang. When we talk about these interesting development bank ideas, we need to think about also other financial implications. Like, for example, there is another initiative of local currency and financial cooperation, where we talk about if you want substitution since 2024, the alliance of currency transactions to encourage settlements in local currencies like Chinese yuan, Russian ruble, Kazakhstan tenge, and that's all contributing to the financial, if you want, stability in terms of the goal to reduce dependence on US dollar. So together, these two financial initiatives certainly giving a better and I would say more sustainable development for the financial settlement.
Kuat, your thoughts?
Indeed, 2026 must become the year of institutional deepening, in my estimate. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization needs to move from consensus building now to implementation. I mean, there's so many organizations. There's a clear division between, the growing aggressive rhetoric from the West, and the need for many Eurasian countries to industrialize or reindustrialize. Means that we need these countries need a practical, developmental paradigm shift, I would say. So that's why we need to launch the development bank, expand local currency trade platforms, and articulate a regional industrialization vision that empowers Central Asian countries, for example, to escape the post-Soviet raw material trap. For countries such as Kazakhstan and its neighbors, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's success hinges on whether it becomes a platform of strategic sovereignty and not just geopolitical posturing. So I do believe that, in the past, I would argue that probably 20 years ago, Shanghai Cooperation Organization was associated something with a very amorphous, institution that is all about security. But nowadays we see very practical steps towards, building this alternative economic order. Which is, in contrast to the Bretton Woods institutions, which unfortunately, still promote this unequitable, economic order on the global level.
Kuat, you mentioned a very important point. That is, it's not just the security posturing. It is much more about pragmatic cooperation. When it comes to pragmatism, we have noticed the Central Asian countries has been quite busy over the past few weeks dealing with, Washington, and also, at the same time, some different capitals are working with Moscow and Beijing, and both bilaterally and also multilaterally over the past few weeks. So you see a lot of pragmatism in terms of what is the benefits and where shall I be. So Kuat, coming from where you are, coming from Central Asia, tell us how important is this discussion likely to be carried on in the multilateral platform of SCO within a few days' time?
Yes, I agree. Absolutely agree with you. First of all, Kazakhstan, where I'm from, or other Central Asian countries, they follow what we call the multi-vector foreign policy, which means that given our geopolitical position, geography, neighboring with the second largest economy, on the one hand, on the other hand, with another great neighbor such as Russia, we need to diversify our political vision. But it's clear now that the security, I would dare to say that the security issues are more or less clear. It is clear, where Eurasian countries stand for, especially in light of what's going on in Ukraine, in Palestine, and the role of the West, the so-called collective West in all these conflicts. So indeed, the Central Asian countries' approach to even to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is, of course, is very practical, but in a spiritual level, it goes in line with international law, with in line with the principles of solidarity, with the equitable, sustainable development, and not some kind of exploitation. And yes, we have to, of course, in light of what happened last week when there was a meeting of the so-called C5+1, when for the first time in the modern history, all 5 Central Asian countries, visited Washington and met with President Trump. I mean, we are left with some controversial kind of, I would say, impression of that meeting. The meeting lasted, no offense to our leaders, less than 1 hour. This is the attitude which is like, I would say, United States is giving to 5 independent countries. And of course, it was also kind of practical. It was all about investment and rare metals, but of course, investment in the American economy. So I would say the approach from the American kind of emperor is kind of very much practical, if not cynical. So the choice of Central Asian countries is clear, to have this multi-vector approach in the foreign policy, but at the same time, there's understanding that, on the civilization pathway, it is clear where we should be, where we belong to.
Elena, your thoughts on the latest development? For example, the role of Central Asia in interacting with different players.
Basically, what we need to understand that Kazakhstan, who was one of the founding members, and other Central Asian states, they see Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a part of broader strategy to maintain stability while pursuing economic development. They participate in other alliances, in other organizations, but as well as maintain dialogue with European Union, with United States of America. But notable benefits for Central Asia with regards to Shanghai Cooperation, I would say several stands: security assurance, economic opportunities. And basically, if we talk about the Kazakhstan perspectives, we have to remember it is the largest economy in Central Asia, and it's play a leading role in economic development of the region. And yet, as Quad said, we need to look at the diversification ideas, and which is the right place with Shanghai Cooperation, because we talk about the green economy, we talk about digital innovations, education. Yeah. There are multi-vectors dimensions for the economic prosperity of the region and the benefits of countries like China and Russia.
Central Asian nations are sovereign nations, so they are developing their relations not only with Russia and China, but also with the Western countries. It's their right, but I think that those discussions will stay in the framework of their bilateral obligations with Beijing and Moscow, and also within the framework of SCO and Shanghai Spirit.
The region as a whole, the Central Asia in particular, has become more and more contested, not only because I think the United States, the policy, their interest, has been become very much, I think, focused on one single issue, which is that is a critical mineral, and that is, I think, as I can see, very much reflect the Trump administration's sort of transactionism, and which makes sharp contrast of what we have. I'm talking about the SCO, the thinking, the approaches, and so forth. We are looking at a holistic approach, managing or trying to look at taking care of the not only at the regional level, but most importantly on the question of security, culture, trade, and so on and so forth. The Shanghai Cooperation Contact, SCO Development Bank, which exactly I think important in this context. On the one hand, we are working together. On the other hand, I think arguably the idea, SCO, is also very much open and inclusive.
The other thing is about trade. Of course, we have seen tariffs, one country against the rest of the world. Now it quiets down somewhat with some of the bilateral negotiations, including between China and the United States. The two heads of state met. Of course, there are some results when it comes to impacts in economic and trade. But how will SCO as a multilateral platform likely to address this issue about trade, about tariff, and likely to maintain one important platform for free trade and for trade within the region? Yelena.
When we talk about the trade, we need to think about the global trade. It's between China, US, but we also have to look at if our subject of our conversation, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we need to look at their trade. And for example, China trades with fellow members is relatively small because it's around 8% of the total China trade. And at the moment, we have to say that the situation with Shanghai Cooperation is evolving between the members. Would they go further? Would they push to the more bilateral agreements between the members of the states? It's remained to be seen. We also have WTO in a way. And at the same time, we've got a very high protectionist policy, textbook example by President Trump now, America first, and increasing the tariffs in the global setting. I believe that all countries will react in their own national way, but I think the consensus, and we could see the points already with the creation of the bank, with talking about the local currency, with broadening economic agenda.
Yes.
We could see that is a reaction which the countries are trying to pursue as a answer to the President Trump increasing tariffs.
Kuat, trade among the SCO economies are always quite active. Recently, we have seen, of course, Central Asia, China, Central Asia, Russia maintaining, and also interactions among all. Tell us more about your thoughts on the trade issue.
Yes, indeed. You see, even within Central Asian countries, half of them, namely Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Belarus, which is not Central Asia, but still are members of Eurasian Union Eurasian Union custom system. But at the same time, almost all Central Asian countries are members of WTO. So from that side, there was no any kind of issues. I think that, of course, the issue with the so-called deglobalization or the issues with the trade became the global agenda because of this very, very unilateral and aggressive approach from Trump's administration. And this is why I think we need to bring other initiatives, which like really challenges this kind of approach and provides an alternative path to development. And in this regard, the Global Governance Initiative, which has been mentioned, which was proposed by President Xi Jinping, this initiative proposed a more equitable global order, challenging the neoliberal and dollar-centric institutions of the West. So within for example, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, this global governance initiative serves as a framework to build institutional autonomy in trade, in technology, and financial systems. These are essential for countries of the region. The many Shanghai Cooperation Organization's member countries who seek to escape this extractivist role assigned to them, to us in the global value chain. So the Shanghai Spirit, based on mutual respect and non-interference, complements and by the way, the respect for international law, including the trade agreements, complements the Global Governance Initiative by embedding these governance norms in regional practices. It provides a normative shield, I would say, for member states, like comparatively small economies like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan compared to, for example, China, of course. And these are navigating, principles between competing global powers while attempting domestic reforms.
And I think it would be probably too early or too mature to talk about the full-fledged FTAs in the region. But definitely, I think there are growing interest and efforts working along the line. And China has taken some unilateral, that's a different unilateralism in this regard by opening up. And based on the preparations of ground that China has made in terms of infrastructure, FBI, and also, I think at the bilateral levels on the question of settlement of local currency and so forth, to building a better, safe, and stable regional supply chain that in the end will benefit all the members of us.
Right. With that, we're concluding today's discussion. Thank you so much for this preview and analysis of SCO's next periods of tasks and targets. Thank you so much. Ying, Yuri, Yelena, and Kuat, thank you.